Improvisational theatre, often referred to as improv, is a theatre form in which performances are spontaneously created without the aid of a script. Performers will work collaboratively to create a story that is rich with characters, dialogue, and action, based on a suggestion that they get from the audience. In the early 2000s, it burst into the mainstream with the hit show, Whose Line Is It Anyway? This show played a major role in popularizing short-form improv and making it entertaining and accessible for a large audience. Short-form improv is a staple in the improv scene, often being used by improv troupes in their late-night shows. While we see improv thriving on stage today, have you ever wondered about its origins? Where did improv come from, and how did it turn into the improv that we know and love today? Join me as I dive into the rich history of improv. Let's get into it! The earliest known forms of improvisational theatre can be traced back to ancient cultures, with significant developments happening in Italy. In 300 BC, a masked theatre form called an Atellan farce was gaining popularity in Rome. There are little known evidence to these farces, as they are believed to have been improvised without being recorded. Imagine that. No phones in sight, just Romans having a lovely time, soaking in the farce. Aww. However, we do have some literary evidence that was documented in the 1st century BC by the dramatists Lucius Pomponius and Quintus Novius. And if I said that wrong, don't correct me, I don't want to know, I love living in ignorance. From their documentations, historians have been able to learn more about these farces and draw up some conclusions on what they would have been like. I'd like to ask, what is a farce? Dumb joke. So what exactly is a farce? It's a comedic piece of work that uses buffoonery and horseplay and features some outrageous characters put in absurd situations. From the writings of Lucius Pomponius and Quintus Novius, historians believe that the farces were between 300 and 400 lines long, which means that they would have lasted around 15 to 28 minutes. These plays included a wide range of stock characters, such as Makis. The name Makis derives from the Greek term makion, which means to be stupid. Poor little guy, just wanted to be in a play and I was being all stupid. Makis was often played as a glutton and a clown. He also features the most in Novius's documentation, which suggests that he might have been the leading character. Next up, we have old Bacchus. The origin of Bacchus's name is unclear, however it is speculated that it derives from the Latin word bacca, which means cheek. Google describes this character as a fat-cheeked, gluttonous braggart, which is not very kind. The last character was Dorsinus. I think that's how you pronounce it, but I literally can't find any pronunciation anywhere. So, Dorsinus. It derives from the word dorsum, which means back, as this character was a hunchback who was also a bit of a trickster and always getting into trouble. I'm gonna let you guess who the actors were in these shows. Who do you think? Raise your hands if you said professional actors. Now put them down because you're wrong. Professional actors were excluded from these performances, and instead, the roles were played by the sons of ancient Roman citizens who were allowed to serve in the army. I guess if your father wasn't in the army, then you weren't allowed to perform. Guess I've got to enlist my dad in the army. Sorry, Steve. Subjects and characters were predetermined before the show, with all of the dialogue being improvised. These farces can be seen as a pivotal influence in the modern world of improvisational theatre, while also being a significant precursor to many ancient theatre forms, such as Commedia dell'arte. Commedia, also referred to as the Commedia profession, was an early mass theatre form that originated in Italy between the 16th and 18th centuries. The theatre form was performed all over Europe, with its earliest known performance being held in ancient Rome in 1551. Notably, women started performing the female characters as early as 1561, making them the first ever known female professional actors of all time. Woo! Yeah! Woo! Oh, what a win, and we don't get many of those as women, so that is great. Commedia used a mixture of improv and scripted content. Much like a farce, they used a whole lot of pantomime. The form relied heavily on foolish wit or a slapstick comedy routine that was well known with the cast. Commedia also used a wide range of stock characters that usually derived from different social classes and were overly dramatized. These characters include Zani. Zani was often played as a buffoon or a clown. He was used to represent the lower class, meaning that he was often played as a peasant or a migrant worker working as a servant in the Venetian society. This was shown in the characterization of the character through the use of crude sounds like burping, snoring, and farting, and also by appearing ravenously hungry on stage. Back in the time of Commedia, whenever they wanted someone to look poor on stage, they would just make them appear really hungry, which is a choice, and I don't know if I like it or not. Next up was Pantalone, the man of many pants. The character of Pantalone was often an old merchant of great wealth who was highly esteemed with great business skills. Contrasting depictions of Pantalone played him as a ruined old man who had lost all of his wealth and was losing his mind, which felt, honestly. Then we have Arlecchino, who is my favorite character in Commedia. I love that little guy. Arlecchino is played as a faithful servant, though he was presented to the audience as a foolish, dim-witted clown. He was the acrobat of Commedia, meaning that he was doing lots of tricks, but also just doing insanely absurd things and covering them up with his wit and charm. Arlecchino's storyline was always that he was sent on a task by his master, but he would get distracted by his own trickery and his own personal schemes. He also had a hot smoking girlfriend called Columbina. Ooh. I am getting so warm, so I'm gonna take my clothes off and I don't want you to say anything about it. Adeline farces in Commedia dell'arte laid the foundation of improvisational theatre. However, improv isn't just used on stage. It is also used in the rehearsal rooms to aid in the training of actors. The rise of improv being used in rehearsal rooms stems from the work of Soviet Russian theatre practitioner Stanislavski. Stanislavski was born in 1863 and was a renowned teacher, director, and author, publishing many influential books before his death in 1938. His rise to fame came from an acting system that he created which helped to guide actors through the preparation for a role, the rehearsal process, and their overall performance. To understand how Stanislavski incorporated improv in the rehearsal room, we must first understand the basic foundations of his acting system. These are as follows. Given circumstances. Given circumstances is the background information and context of a character that an actor can derive from the script. This information allows actors an insight into the date and time of the world that the play is set in, and also any personal information about the character that they are portraying. Super objective. The super objective is the one thing that the character wants more than anything else in the entire world. All of their smaller objectives and motivations in every other scene will link to this super objective or this one thing that they really, really want. Emotional memory. This is often referred to as emotional recall. The technique encourages actors to recall a moment from the distant past and recreate those emotions on stage. However, this method was later rejected by Stanislavski in his final years of life due to the harsh impact that it had on actors and their emotional well-being. The method was found to be too demanding and exhausting, often leading to tension and hysteria. Stanislavski concluded that the unconscious feeling should be lured out gently, rather than being forced out through emotional recall. The magic what if. This is arguably Stanislavski's most popular method. Stanislavski believed that an actor would never be able to perceive stage events as reality. Instead of this, he would get his actors to imagine that they were in the shoes of the character that they were portraying. He would then ask them to imagine what they would do if they were in the character's situation. In doing so, he was ensuring that the character's motivation and the actor's motivation were the same, meaning that the actor could play the role more honestly. Stanislavski used improv alongside with these basic foundations in the rehearsal room to allow the actor to explore their character outside of the text they'd been given. Exploring the character with improv really blurred the lines between reality and fiction, which helped an actor feel really connected to their character. Stanislavski was one of the first theatre practitioners to focus so intently on improvisational theatre, though he certainly wasn't the last. Another theatre practitioner that had a significant impact on the world of improv was Keith Johnstone. Johnstone was a British and Canadian educator and theatre director. He was a pioneer of improv and was famous for inventing the improv system, part of which was theatre sports. The improv system worked to detail the foundational basics of improv and helped guide improvisers to create work that was authentic and also encouraged them to use their imagination. His philosophy was that in the right environment with the right tools, improvisation should be able to alleviate the universal fear of being stared at, turn dull people into brilliant people, improve interpersonal skills and encourage a lifelong study of human interaction, improve functioning in all areas, develop storytelling skills, familiarize the student with the bones of theatre as well as the surface, and give the stage back to the performers. From his philosophy, he has founded many different theatre formats, such as maestro, guerrilla, and theatre sports. These formats are still being performed globally and have had a major impact on the way that improv is performed and also the way that it is received. These formats are as follows. Maestro. Maestro is an improv format that encourages players to have a healthy competition with one another. In some versions, players will have a number on their chest, in other versions they might have name tags, or they might be on two different teams represented by different colours. The director or the MC of the night will decide how many players are in each scene and what game they will be playing. They will then explain the game to the audience, get a suggestion from the audience, and the players will start their scene. At the end of each scene, the audience will clap or cheer to show how many points they think that the scene should get. However, the MC can also give or take points depending on good or bad behaviour from the players. After every single player has played a scene, that is the end of the round. The person with the lowest amount of points at the end of each round will take a bow and leave the stage because they are eliminated. This continues until a winner is announced as the Grand Maestro. The second format is Guerrilla. Guerrilla is played with a small amount of players consisting of the MC of the night, the players, and a person dressed as a gorilla. It is then announced to the audience that throughout the night, points will be awarded in the form of bananas. Whoever wins the most bananas by the end of the night gets to take the gorilla home for the week and do whatever they like to it. Oh! The audience is trained to vote for the scenes that they've watched, either yelling banana for a scene that they really enjoyed or forfeit for a scene that they didn't particularly enjoy. The scene will be played by two players with one person directing them. As a director, the player can side coach the other characters, stop the scene as much as they like, and steer the scene in whatever direction they please. At the end of the scene, it is not the players that are judged by the audience, but the director. The audience will either award a banana or a forfeit to a director at the end of their scene. A forfeit is essentially a punishment for doing a really awful scene. An example of this could be, sing a song about the bad scene that you just did, deliver a really heartfelt apology about what you just made us see, or get a really disappointed mother in the audience to tell you how disappointed she is in you for your scene. It's pretty brutal, to be honest. And finally, theatre sports. Theatre sports was originally designed for young performers with the belief that they would enjoy the format due to the risk element, though theatre sports is played globally by people of all ages. The format is operated like a competition, with teams of players competing against each other, with judges awarding points after each scene. Teams would issue challenges to the other teams with things that they must incorporate in their scenes, whether it be an object or a moral lesson. The difference between theatre sports and traditional improv games was that in theatre sports there was a fixed duration for each scene in the competition. Teams had a small amount of time to play a game of their choosing and deliver a story that was interesting to watch and satisfying for the audience. Judges would inform players of how much time they had left in a scene, though they also had a special horn that they could use whenever they were bored. Once a horn was used, the scene had to end ASAP. The judges would score the scenes throughout the night, and at the end, they would announce the grand winner of the competition. Keith Johnstone has a wealth of knowledge on improvisational theatre that has significantly influenced its growth and success. If you're wishing to learn more about his principles and beliefs, then he has two books, Impro and Impro for Storytellers, and also has his own film, Impro Transformations, which can be purchased on his website. All of these resources will be linked in the description below. I cannot recommend him enough. With a rich foundation of improvised theatre being set, it was only a matter of time before it made its way onto our screens. In 1998, ABC Network aired the first episode of Whose Line Is It Anyway? The show was heavily influenced by Keith Johnstone and showed players Ryan Stiles, Colin Mockery, and Wayne Brady performing short-form improv games and receiving points per scene from their host, Drew Carey. Drew Carey's role within the show was to decide how many players were going to be in each scene and also what games they were going to be playing. Topics of the games were suggested by the audience or by predetermined prompts made by the host. At the end of each scene, Carey would award points to the players. The points held no meaning, and Carey often gave them out for humorous reasons. At the end of the show, the player with the most points either got to perform in a scene with the host, or they got to sit back and watch everyone else do it. Whose Lines It Anyway was a major hit and brought improv into the mainstream in a way it had never been done before. When asked about the show, longtime player Colin Mockery stated, "I'm proud that it got improv into the public mindset. I know there were a lot of people who looked down on Whose Line Is It Anyway, which I understand. We never said this is the end-all be-all of improv. I always like to think it's a gateway to all the different forms there are. but it's gotten the word out there, and it was a show that families could watch together. The show had a successful run, delighting families until 2007. Though, after public demand, the show got rebooted in 2013 and is still actively playing on screens today. Whose Lines It Anyway paved the way for improvised theatre to be shown on screens. In its early years, it introduced audiences to the world of improv and showed how it could thrive in a broadcast format. The show opened the door for more improv shows to be featured on streaming platforms, such as Middleditch and Schwartz. Middleditch and Schwartz was an improv show that premiered on Netflix in 2020 as a 3-episode special. The special was performed by American improvisers Thomas Middleditch and Ben Schwartz. However, the special was unique as the improvisers performed long-form improv. The formats that we have previously looked at all include short-form improv games, such as theatre sports where you have fixed durations for scenes, or other formats where each scene is meant to last around 5 minutes. However, there is another form that improvisers can do, which is called long form. To kick off each of their shows, Middleditch and Schwartz would interview an audience member for about 5 minutes about something that they were looking forward to or something that they were dreading. From these interactions, they learned a lot about the audience members' lifestyle, their friends, their ambitions, and their fears. They would then perform a 45-minute show using all of the information that they had gathered to help them tell a really beautiful story.
What does the sound of duty mean?
What does the sound of duty mean? What does the sound of duty mean?
The special was released in the midst of the pandemic when people were looking for something new or something exciting to feast on. This curiosity for something new, paired with the huge amount of talent of this duo, meant that it was a great success. Unfortunately, the special was not renewed due to allegations surrounding Thomas Middleditch. However, Ben Schwartz is currently touring the world with his show, Schwartz and Friends. In conclusion, the evolution of improv is nothing short of remarkable. The journey of improv really proves that it is such an entertaining thing to watch, but it brings audiences together, encourages players to work collaboratively, and also pushes the boundaries of traditional storytelling. As improv continues to evolve, it will grow into different things and change into different formats, though it will always be inviting audiences to engage in the spontaneity and joy of live performances. Thank you so much for diving into the rich history of improv with me. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time for another deep dive.